Most people spend their entire lives running from the very thing that could transform them into someone powerful, someone disciplined, someone impossible to ignore, and that thing is hardship. The moment life becomes uncomfortable, they look for shortcuts, distractions, excuses, and softer paths. But here's the reality nobody likes to admit. Comfort does not build strong individuals. Comfort builds fragile ones. Pressure builds the dangerous ones. Before we go deeper into this idea, take a second to subscribe to the channel, because the mindset you are about to hear is not designed for people who want easy motivation. It is designed for people who want to become mentally unbreakable. Now, understand something that most people never realize. Hard times are not accidents. They are filters. Life constantly applies pressure to reveal who has structure and who collapses under weight. When everything is easy, anyone can look confident. Anyone can pretend to be disciplined. Anyone can talk about ambition. But the moment things become difficult, when money becomes tight, when opportunities disappear, when people doubt you, when progress slows down, suddenly the truth appears. Weak habits crack. Weak discipline evaporates. Weak focus disappears. And this is exactly where powerful individuals are separated from the crowd. Because powerful people are not the ones who avoid difficulty. They are the ones who understand that difficulty is the training ground. Think about it like elite competition. In a chess match between amateurs, mistakes are everywhere. Moves are careless. Strategies are shallow. But when grandmasters sit across from each other, every move is pressure. Every decision carries weight. Every position demands deep calculation. Hard times force you into that level of thinking. They remove the luxury of laziness. They demand awareness. They sharpen your instincts. They force you to adapt. And adaptation is the birthplace of strength. The human mind was never designed to grow inside constant comfort. Evolution itself proves this. Every advancement humanity has ever made came from pressure, scarcity, survival, competition, necessity. When resources were limited, intelligence expanded. When environments became hostile, resilience developed. When survival was uncertain, discipline emerged. Hardship forces your brain to reorganize itself around solutions instead of excuses. And that is why the people who survive difficult seasons often emerge with a level of clarity that others never reach. They start seeing the world differently. While others complain about problems, they start analyzing systems. While others wait for opportunity, they start building it. While others panic, they become calm, because they have already been through storms that train their mind to operate under pressure. Most people misunderstand confidence. They think confidence comes from success. They think confidence comes from approval. But real confidence comes from surviving things that should have broken you and realizing that they didn't. That realization changes how you walk, how you speak, how you think, and how you approach every challenge after that moment. When you have faced real pressure, smaller obstacles stop intimidating you. Situations that paralyze other people become routine to you because you have already built the internal structure required to handle weight. Hard times are like the forge that shapes steel. Raw metal by itself is useless. It bends, it cracks, it lacks structure. But once it enters the furnace, once it is exposed to extreme heat, pressure, and repeated impact, something changes at the molecular level. The structure becomes stronger, more stable, more resilient. The same principle applies to human character. Without pressure, your character remains untested. Without resistance, your discipline remains theoretical. Without difficulty, your mental strength never develops beyond imagination. And this is why many people stay weak even when they have access to opportunity. Because opportunity without pressure produces comfort, and comfort slowly dissolves ambition. The mind begins negotiating with itself. It begins choosing convenience instead of excellence. It begins lowering standards little by little until mediocrity feels normal. But hardship interrupts that process. Hardship forces a decision. Either you adapt and evolve, or you collapse and remain average. And powerful individuals make a very specific choice during difficult times. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask a completely different question. They ask, "What is this pressure trying to teach me?" That single shift in perspective changes everything. Because the moment you see hardship as training instead of punishment, your mindset transforms. Suddenly, the struggle becomes useful. The pain becomes information. The challenge becomes preparation. And once you reach that mental position, you stop fearing hard times, you start studying them. You start extracting lessons from them. You start using them as tools to sharpen your discipline. Imagine a battlefield commander studying strategy. Every defeat becomes data. Every obstacle becomes a map of weaknesses that must be corrected. No elite strategist panics when things go wrong. They observe, they adjust, they evolve their tactics. Powerful individuals treat their lives the same way. They treat struggle like strategic training. They analyze their reactions. They refine their habits. They eliminate weaknesses. Over time, this process builds something extremely rare: mental endurance. And mental endurance is what separates people who achieve temporary success from those who build lasting power. Anyone can perform well when motivation is high and circumstances are favorable. But when exhaustion appears, when progress slows, when rewards are delayed, when doubt becomes loud, that is where endurance becomes the deciding factor. Hard times stretch your endurance capacity. They force you to operate when motivation disappears. They force you to continue when results are invisible. They force you to build discipline that does not rely on emotion. And discipline that survives hard times becomes permanent. It stops being a temporary habit and becomes part of your identity. At that point, you no longer need external motivation because your standards have changed. You expect more from yourself. You demand consistency from yourself. You hold yourself accountable at a level most people never experience. This is why powerful individuals often come from difficult backgrounds or intense life experiences. It is not because hardship automatically creates strength. It is because hardship gives people the opportunity to build strength if they choose to respond correctly. Many people experience difficulty and become bitter. They become negative. They blame circumstances. They surrender to frustration. But a small percentage of people react differently. They treat adversity like a personal challenge. They refuse to let the environment define their limits. They decide that pressure will refine them instead of destroying them. That decision is where transformation begins. Because once you adopt that mentality, every difficult moment becomes part of your training system. Rejection becomes resilience training. Failure becomes strategy training. Uncertainty becomes patience training. Competition becomes performance training. Slowly, your mind begins operating at a higher level of awareness. Instead of reacting emotionally, you start responding strategically. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you start using it as feedback. And over time, something remarkable happens. The same situations that once felt overwhelming begin to feel manageable. Problems that used to drain your energy start sharpening your focus. Because your internal capacity has expanded. You have built psychological armor through repeated exposure to pressure. And that armor cannot be purchased, inherited, or borrowed. It can only be forged through experience. Hard times teach lessons that comfort will never reveal. They teach you who is truly reliable in your life. They teach you which habits are actually supporting your growth. They teach you how you react when control disappears. They expose your real level of discipline when nobody is watching. And that knowledge becomes incredibly valuable because self-awareness is one of the most powerful advantages a person can develop. When you understand your weaknesses clearly, you can fix them precisely. When you understand your strengths clearly, you can apply them strategically. But without pressure, most people never discover either one. They drift through life assuming they are capable, disciplined, and resilient until reality tests them and proves otherwise. Hard times remove illusions. They reveal the truth about your character. And while that process can feel uncomfortable, it is also incredibly empowering because once the illusions disappear, you gain the opportunity to rebuild yourself intentionally, to design stronger habits, to develop deeper focus, to increase your tolerance for pressure, to raise your personal standards beyond what you previously believed possible. Powerful people are not born with extraordinary mental strength. They build it through exposure to situations that force growth. They develop calm inside chaos. They develop patience inside uncertainty. They develop discipline inside exhaustion. And once those traits become permanent, their advantage becomes undeniable. Because while others panic during difficulty, they remain stable. While others lose focus under pressure, they become sharper. While others retreat when things become challenging, they advance with precision. That is the real power created by hard times. Not temporary motivation, not emotional speeches, but a permanent upgrade to the way your mind operates under pressure. And once that upgrade happens, the world begins to look very different because the same challenges that break most people become the exact situations where you perform at your highest level. But the deeper truth about hard times is something most people never study carefully. Pressure does not simply test you, it rewires you. Every difficult season forces your brain to reorganize around survival, discipline, and precision. When life becomes unpredictable, your mind stops wasting energy on distractions. It begins searching for stability, structure, and control. This is why individuals who endure serious struggle often develop an unusual level of focus. They have learned that attention is a resource. They know that scattered thinking creates mistakes, and mistakes during difficult periods are expensive, so their mind becomes sharper, more selective, more strategic. Hard times force you to simplify your thinking. You stop chasing 10 different goals at once. You stop entertaining useless opinions. You stop negotiating with laziness. The noise disappears, and the priorities become brutally clear. Survival, progress, control, discipline. And once your brain begins operating at that level of clarity, something powerful happens. Your standards increase. Not because someone told you to raise them, but because experience demanded it. When you have lived through situations where weak discipline costs you time, energy, or opportunity, you stop tolerating weak discipline. When you have experienced what happens when you hesitate, you learn to move faster. When you have watched distractions destroy progress, you begin protecting your focus like a valuable asset. This is the invisible transformation that hardship produces. It upgrades your internal operating system. The average person lives reactively, responding emotionally to whatever happens around them. But someone shaped by pressure begins living deliberately. They analyze before they act. They calculate before they commit. They become calm observers, even when situations become chaotic. Imagine a seasoned pilot flying through turbulence. To a passenger, the shaking feels terrifying. The mind panics. The imagination predicts disaster. But the pilot remains composed because turbulence is not unfamiliar. Experience has trained the pilot's nervous system to remain stable under conditions that would frighten others. Hard times create the same psychological stability inside people. When you have endured uncertainty before, new uncertainty feels manageable. When you have survived setbacks before, new setbacks lose their intimidation. Your mind stops overreacting. Instead, it begins assessing. What is the problem? What are the options? What is the next calculated move? This ability to remain mentally composed during difficulty is incredibly rare, and it becomes a massive advantage in every competitive environment. Business, leadership, personal development, strategy, decision-making, every serious field rewards individuals who can think clearly while others panic. Hard times train exactly that ability. They place you inside uncomfortable scenarios where emotional reactions are useless and strategic thinking becomes necessary. At first, the pressure feels overwhelming. Your mind resists it. It searches for escape. But if you continue pushing forward, something changes. Your tolerance increases. Your reaction speed improves. Your decision-making sharpens. Slowly, you become the type of individual who does not freeze when pressure appears. You become the person who operates effectively inside it. And once that transformation occurs, you begin noticing something fascinating about the world around you. Most people are not defeated by difficulty itself. They are defeated by their reaction to difficulty. The moment a situation becomes uncomfortable, they mentally surrender. Their internal dialogue becomes negative. They assume failure before they even attempt adaptation. Their focus collapses. Their effort decreases. In other words, they allow pressure to shrink their mindset instead of expanding it. But powerful individuals treat pressure differently. They treat it as a signal that growth is occurring. They recognize that discomfort often appears exactly at the point where improvement becomes possible. Think about physical training. When muscles are pushed beyond their comfortable capacity, they experience resistance, strain, and temporary breakdown. But that process is exactly what triggers growth and strength development. If the body never experiences resistance, it never adapts. The same principle applies to mental strength. If your life never forces you to confront difficulty, your psychological capacity remains underdeveloped. Hard times push your mental muscles beyond their previous limits. They create moments where you must choose between surrender and persistence. And every time you choose persistence, even in a small way, your identity begins changing. You stop seeing yourself as fragile. You begin seeing yourself as resilient. That shift in identity is extremely powerful because identity controls behavior. When someone believes they are weak, they act cautiously. They hesitate. They avoid responsibility. But when someone begins believing they are resilient, their behavior changes dramatically. They take calculated risks. They pursue bigger goals. They confront challenges instead of avoiding them. Hard times give you the raw evidence required to build that new identity. Every obstacle you overcome becomes proof that you are stronger than your previous limits. Every difficulty you survive becomes a reference point your mind can return to in future battles. Over time, these experiences accumulate into something incredibly valuable: self-trust. Self-trust is one of the most important psychological advantages a person can develop. It means that when things become uncertain, you do not immediately panic because you trust your ability to figure things out. You trust your capacity to endure. You trust your discipline to continue working, even when motivation disappears. This type of self-trust cannot be created through comfort or easy victories. It is built through surviving difficult periods where the outcome was uncertain and you still managed to move forward. Hard times teach you that progress is not always dramatic. Sometimes progress is simply refusing to quit for one more day. Sometimes progress is maintaining discipline when results are invisible. Sometimes progress is continuing to learn while others are giving up. And these small acts of persistence slowly compound into major transformations. While others are waiting for ideal conditions, you are developing endurance. While others are complaining about pressure, you are adapting to it. While others are looking for easier paths, you are strengthening your ability to handle the difficult ones. This difference in mentality eventually creates an enormous gap between individuals. Years later, people often look at powerful individuals and assume they were naturally confident, naturally disciplined, naturally ambitious. But what they are actually seeing is the result of years spent navigating difficult environments that forced those traits to develop. Pressure sculpted their mindset. Struggle refined their habits. Responsibility expanded their capacity. And the most fascinating part of this process is that once someone has been shaped by enough hardship, they begin viewing difficulty from a completely different perspective. Instead of fearing hard times, they start recognizing them as opportunities to sharpen themselves further. They know that every challenging season contains hidden advantages for those who remain disciplined. While others slow down, they accelerate. While others become distracted by emotion, they become more focused. Hard times become their competitive advantage because they have trained themselves to operate effectively inside conditions that discourage everyone else. And in a world where most people are constantly searching for comfort, the individual who can remain strong during discomfort immediately becomes rare, valuable, and difficult to compete against. And that is the final truth most people eventually discover if they stay in the fight long enough. Hard times were never there to destroy you. They were there to reveal you. Every Every difficult moment was a mirror showing you what needed to grow stronger. Every obstacle was a signal pointing toward the discipline you had not yet developed. The pressure was never the enemy, the pressure was the teacher. Because once you walk through enough storms, once you face enough uncertainty, once you carry enough responsibility when things feel heavy, you begin to understand something powerful about yourself. You are far more capable than the comfortable version of you ever believed. The version of you that existed before the struggle was limited by fear, distraction, and low standards. But the version of you that survives hardship begins operating with clarity, patience, and control. And when that shift happens, when your mind no longer searches for escape, but instead searches for solutions, when your discipline becomes stronger than your emotions, when your standards become higher than your excuses, you stop being someone who waits for life to become easy, and you become someone who grows stronger every time life becomes difficult. Because powerful people are not defined by calm seasons, but by the way they move when the pressure rises, when the environment becomes uncertain, and when everyone else begins slowing down. Those are the exact moments where the individual forged by hard times continues forward with focus, structure, and relentless determination.